Welcome to Just Kick It with Big Bob, where I share my 2 bobs worth with you whether you like it or not. A win is a win is a win, and despite woeful goal kicking in the third, the young Crows held on to grind out a hard-fought win against the Suns, who never really got a grip on the game. Unlike the one player who could have made a difference, but who, having tried to reintroduce the squirrel grip back into the game in the previous round, consequently found himself on the sidelines. Be that as it may, the Crows' backline, with only a baker's dozen of games between them, and not, it must be said, hugely tall in a vertical sense, held strong and restricted the much-vaunted Suns forward King Gilakocious et al. To a losing score. The previous round also saw Port cop a 100,000 fine for playing fast and loose with medical protocols. A couple of Aspros or a BEX doesn't cut it these days, Doc. That round also saw a peevish reminder by the umpires to the players not to indicate with outstretched arm towards the big screen in any way that could be construed as dissentful or disrespectful. The consequence of said action being 50 metres no correspondence entered into. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Furthermore, hasn't the sling tackle phased its way out of the game? And don't get me wrong, that can only be a good thing. Only to be replaced by the emerging technique now known as the chiko roll, whereby the player is rock and rolled onto his back, and isn't the game all the better for it, with the chiko roll index fast becoming a meaningful indicator of the relative prospects of the opposing teams as the clock keeps ticking and as night follows day and vice versa. Now, I received a handwritten letter in the post this week from a young bloke asking about my philosophy on coaching, and more specifically the tactics that I favoured during my, and others have said this, not me, and I quote, my illustrious career in the hot seat of the coach's box, or in my case the splintery old wooden bench along the boundary line. Well, although this is neither the time nor place to answer this question with the depth of thought and seriousness of intent that it so rightly deserves, I will say this. My approach was simple. My inclination was not to overcomplicate things. We're not installing solar panels here after all, and players, and this is a sweeping generalization, players are not by and large rocket surgeons or brain scientists, although there have been notable exceptions to this rule of thumb. I boiled it down to 3 things. You've either got the ball, you haven't got the ball, and or you want to get the ball. And if you haven't got the ball, you can't kick goals. And as you know, nature abhors a vacuum, so if you don't kick goals, you don't win. Simple as that. And I found that once the players were on board with these fundamental principles, they could buy into them in a visceral way, and dare I say, own them. And once that happens, one thing leads to another. The pieces of the puzzle fall into place, and suddenly you string together a few wins, you're home and hosed, and everyone is happily singing from the same page of the hymn book. A tiger for me, a tiger for me. Never bothered with the huddle or the press or the flood or the crush or the cluster or outriders nor the coefficient of aerobic output of players. It's like cooking sausages. You can chuck them on the barbie, fry them in a pan, boil them in a pot, chuck on some dead horse, but at the end of the day they're still sausages, and it's the sizzle that counts. And of course it goes without saying, you need a good sales department at the business end of the ground who can close the deal, cash the check and whack that Johnny Cash under the mattress. And if I did have a point of difference, it must be said that I thrived on the unspoken messages one can impart non-verbally, so to speak. And I'm talking body language, eyeball to eyeball. And don't be fooled into underestimating the potent and nuanced role that eyebrows can play in the coaching caper. Well-executed eyebrow gyrations have got more than one team over the line in tight situations. Furthermore, it goes without saying that in my pre-game address, I refrained from any Kafka-esque remarks that might be confusing to the players. Now, there is more to be said on the coaching caper, but I'll have to come back to that topic in future episodes, as I know it to be of vital interest to all concerned. In the meantime, you've been hearing and feeling Big Bob with my 2 bobs worth, take it or leave it. And till next time, you slave all day without much pay, and I'm just biding my time, because you're working for the man. Whoa, whoa, whoa.